The forage was successful and the group returned with full bags and only one dead member, at least at first. Then they discovered that Travis hit a bite, the teeth marks jagged as a mountain lion. It was on his shoulder. He pulled up his collar because he was afraid and he wasn't ready to die, and hoped a reckless hope that the infection would spare him. It didn't. When Travis turned, it happened suddenly. He only barely began to show signs, shaking, sweating, blinking rapidly like a man seeing light for the first time. Kat was concerned and reached out. Travis's bite took the two smallest fingers from her hand. Her scream alerted the others. Tor and Grant were able to hold Travis down while Laura drove a 16-inch rail spike through his left eye into his brain. They took Kat's hand off at the wrist using the wood axe outside the cabin. When the shaking began later that night, Kat didn't protest or beg or run. Kat asked Hannah to be the one to do it, then rested her neck on the same stump she'd lost her hand on hours before. The wood was still stained a thoughtful red. Hannah was efficient. There probably wasn't much pain. Later, they would bury Travis and Kat deep. It broke Tor. While he never cared much for Travis, Kat was like a little sister, a red ribbon pinned on the rotting corpse of the world. After they'd buried the pieces of her, Tor stood up and walked away into the forest. No one tried to stop him. Each of them made a choice every moment to either go forward or stop. The last they saw of him was his shadow at the tree line. Despite their best efforts, the cabin was found. It may have been the dim light of the camp lanterns bleeding out, or the smell of cooking meat, or the muffled sounds of sobbing. Whatever the cause, the things came. Waves and waves of them crashing against the logs and boarded windows. Dozens fell, creating a stinking wall of dead flesh 3 feet tall. Once it was over, the only two standing were Hannah and Grant. Max was caught outside in the first rush while collecting wood. The things ripped him into small, soft pieces. Laura, Mel, Mandark, and Ren were all dragged outside during the siege. They each went out fighting, and Laura was dead before she was pulled through the window. Hannah was able to give her that mercy, at least. Grant was bleeding badly, covered in bites. He'd held the doorway and nothing had gotten past him. His hands were shaking too badly to pull the trigger, so it fell to Hannah. Grant smiled and lied and told her it would be okay. After it was done, Hannah sat alone on the rough floorboards, surrounded by blood and supplies and dead friends. She made her choice. Hannah waited, dragging herself through the motions. A zombie.
People have been changing for more than a year now. We're not sure how it started, only that once you're exposed, that's it. The transformation doesn't happen immediately. That's part of why it's so terrifying. There's about a week between exposure via bite and full conversion. A week full of dread, of bleeding pustules and blackening skin, of sores in the mouth and leaking eyes, until you finally expire and resurrect to spread it yourself. For that entire week, the victim knows what's to come. It's inevitable. Even worse, they know they won't be able to protect their children once they've changed. But that's where I come in. You see, the transformation always happens, to everyone, except me. Doctors don't know if it's my scent that puts them off or something weird about my immune system that makes it impossible for me to catch it. Maybe both. But whatever it is makes me invisible to the zombies. So I have a new job in the apocalypse as a nurse of sorts. A job important enough that I have my own bodyguards and an armored vehicle along with it. You see, I carry people's children to safety, protect babies from having their brains eaten as they're transported to our walled cities. I comfort grieving parents in their final moments of lucidity before I essentially disappear from view. I'm wearing today's child in a baby carrier close to my chest as I walk to the car, their tiny bodies swaddled in one of my t-shirts to hide their scent and another shirt draped on top to hide them from view. Their perfect lashes flutter as they suck on a pacifier, soothed by my heartbeat. I have a variety of things on me to help keep them quiet and calm, but I've found a bit of plain old rock sugar to be most effective, and it doesn't have any side effects. It's a good job, and my work is meaningful. I know I'm contributing to a better, brighter future. However, the worst part is passing the parents who can't afford my services as they beg and plead for me to take their children. But if there's one thing that survived the end of the world, it's capitalism. And no one rides for free.
Henry never understood why characters in zombie movies always ran so frantically from zombie hordes. He guessed one automatically kicked into survival mode, but it would be easier to succumb, wouldn't it? Especially if, as in World War Z, or 28 Days Later, the transformation was quick, and then one was a zombie, and had nothing to fear? Henry's girlfriend Maya loved zombie movies. She'd shriek and grab his arm, pressing so close he could feel her heart racing, but she'd push away in annoyance when Henry scoffed and said, "Why run? I'd just let him bite and join him. That's the thing about zombie movies. There's an easy out and nobody takes it." "There's a lot you don't know about zombies, asshole," Maya said, rolling her eyes. "You'd do better to run." "I'd just let you run, babe," Henry teased. "I'd stay and be a zombie." When the first reports of necronosis hit the news, Maya was terrified, but Henry still scoffed. "They're slow. A baby could outrun them. They won't stop, though, even when you cut their heads off," Maya fretted. "And it's spreading, fast." When Necronosis B came along, a month later, Henry still scoffed. "No sense trying to run. These bitches got too much speed now. They're right in our county now, though." Maya panicked. She was haphazardly stuffing food and clothes into a backpack, while Henry chuckled and teased. "Stay here and get killed if you want," and she bolted out the door. Henry didn't scoff the next time he saw Maya. She came lurching at him through the backyard, where he'd been trying to pick up a cell signal. The whole damned internet seemed to be down, and he looked up in surprise to see her bloody face, cheek raggedly torn open, teeth gnashing eagerly as she fell on him, and bit hard on his collarbone. And that was when Henry learned why people ran in zombie movies. The pain was searingly hot, shooting through his whole body. He felt his brain pulsing, changing, pushing everything that had been Henry out, and a stranger, furiously hungry, taking over. His eyes felt like they were going to explode. His muscles cramped, convulsed, and forced his limbs forward. It was agony, and he was aware. The virus took over most of his brain, but enough Henry was left to feel it and be horrified at what he was. He looked over at what, just a week ago, had been Maya, and saw that she knew, too, what was happening to her, to both of them. He hadn't thought one would be aware that one was a zombie, aware of being trapped, powerless, in one's own body. He hoped what was left of his part of his brain died before he started to rot, and felt it. Now he understood why people ran in zombie movies. It was just too late to do anything about it.